Well, I'm ready for questions. It's everything is the same up to this point. We've had good practices, and guys are ready to play and compete against another team.
Very good. Our first question is going to come from Robert Allen of Triple Play Sports. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, Coach, have you had a chance to even look around at some of the games that have been televised and kind of gauge how this thing is going, at least as far as the atmosphere? I know it's not something you can control, but it is something that's part of football.
I've watched a little bit here and there, not a lot. We practiced over the weekend, so I haven't seen a lot. But the games look normal. Obviously, there's just not fans for the most part, and I'm sure that the sound is much different. Best I can tell at this time.
One other thing, you've talked a little bit about Chuba the last couple of weeks. What's your plan? I mean, what can you say as far as, you talked about last season that maybe he got the ball too much. How's your feeling about him going into this one? And you've got even more weapons maybe than a year ago. Do you agree?
I would agree with that. He's going to get his carries. We'll base it on how he feels throughout the game, but I would hope that he wouldn't have to carry it 30 times a game. But if he does, for us to be successful on offense and he feels good, then we'll continue to give it to him.
Thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Scott Wright of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, Mike, how has Braden Johnson done in taking advantage of the increased reps that he got last season?
Braden's doing really well. He's been back with us for 10 days or so. He missed a little way with a little tweak of an injury, but he's done well. I think the experience he gained in the latter part of the season last year has really helped him this August.
And then what have you seen from the other two guys at that spot, D. Anderson and Tay Martin?
Well, new guys that are learning our system and competing. And, as they get more comfortable with our offense, we give them more reps.
Thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Bill Haston of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Bill.
Sorry, Gavin. Hey, Mike, I get this from watching the series. So it seems like your message is to your players to make good decisions with regard to what they do away from the facility and where they go and whatever. So are you, you can't put ankle monitors on all these guys. Are you getting good reports on the way they've handled their business away from the facility?
The only reports that we can get, Bill, is the testing. And last week we started the 3 times a week. We tested again yesterday. And as you know, I'm sure you've read up that we test Wednesday and then Friday. And so our results have been fantastic. And I think that's really the only information that tells us if they're doing a good job away from the complex.
Our next question comes from Jenny Carlson of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hey, Mike, I think we might have asked this a couple weeks ago, but you guys are probably like a lot of teams in experimenting with different kind of masks during practice and that sort of thing. What's your anticipation of what guys will do on Saturday? Are they going to be in something everybody wears? What's the plan there?
You talking about players or coaches?
Yeah. All of the above, but I was thinking players, but yeah, both would be good to know.
The players have those scarves around their neck that they use. We're not using the shields. And then the coaches have a variety of face coverings that they feel comfortable with. Some are masks, some are scarves, some are like bandana looking things. And we've used those over the last really 8 weeks. So I think each person has a comfort level with a different type of material.
That I assume then that the players were trying different things to see what they felt best in. Is that an accurate statement?
They have used a variety of face coverings to the best of my knowledge. Because there's so many of them, I can't keep up with what they're all doing, but I know I've seen a number of things out there, and it seems like that each one of them as an individual has settled into what they're comfortable with. I had a question earlier about watching the games last Saturday, and I noticed that I don't think the players are wearing any face coverings, not any that I noticed. So I'm not sure what our players are going to do based on protocol from the Big 12.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Cody Nagel from Go Pokes. Go ahead, Cody.
Hey, Mike, are there any position groups that you're concerned about, maybe a lack of depth because maybe some guys aren't cleared to play yet, maybe they're still recovering from COVID this summer, or any protocols that they're still going through?
Now we're in good shape. I'm comfortable with our depth at all of our positions.
Okay.
Our next question comes from Garen Emig of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Garen.
Mike, sort of a follow-up to what Bill asked about players being smart and mature. How much peace of mind do you have going into a season like this, knowing you have so much experience and program experience just across your offense and defensive depth charts?
Well, we're comfortable with a number of players being on the field on both sides of the ball, and including special teams. I know that none of us can forecast the future, but is there a comfort level for us, the staff, and myself? Sure, based on the unpredictability of the virus and how it can affect a certain position. This is certainly a good year to have some depth with players. So it does make us feel better in practice when we're distributing the reps among the ones and twos, and we have included the threes in more reps this year than we have in the past.
Does your comfort level with the experience and maturity of your team extend off the field as well, to know that these guys are gonna, I mean, I know you're trusting them to do the right thing and be in the right place, but do you have a better sense of trust with this group than maybe you would with more of an inexperienced team?
I think a natural progression would be more trust with maturity and experience in life, whether it's young people in school or young people in athletics or whatever it may be. As they mature and get older, they seem to listen and make better decisions, and I think that this group is doing that. I would also add that that this group of medical people, our medical staff, Doc Ivan and Scott Parker and John Stem and Zach and their staff have clearly been the top. They've been the best in the country in handling this situation, and the plan that we've had by bringing them in really early and going through the format and learning as we go. I just can't imagine that anybody in the country has been better than us, and that's now starting to show. And that gives me a lot of confidence based on where we're at right now. They just had a fantastic plan, and it's worked from day one.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Our next question comes from Jacob Unruh of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Mike, looking at kind of depth chart here, your left side of your offensive line is veteran heavy and your right side's pretty young. What have you kind of seen from that right side as you've adjusted the offensive line?
Well, I see that they're young, just like you said, and they're learning on the run. We have moved some guys around some, so we might balance that out based on where we're at as the game moves on. I mentioned this last week. I have a lot of confidence in Coach Dunn and Coach Dickey to find the formula that best fits our style of play and what we're trying to get accomplished each week, based on the attack we need to have success on the offensive side of the ball.
You know, Hunter Anthony's a guy that got a lot of experience last year. How has he improved?
Well, he's doing good. You know, he had some experience, not a lot. His body's in better shape now, and the natural progression of maturity for him, and seeing more defenses and spending another 12 months in the weight room with Coach Glass has really helped him. So he should improve each week. He's a guy that you look at and say, okay, if you're in the lineup for 6 or 7 games, you should play considerably different in the 1st of November than you will be in September. And that would be a normal progression for a young offensive lineman.
Thanks.
Our next question comes from Frank Bonner of the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Frank.
Hey, Mike, I'm assuming the road game protocol may be a little different with COVID and everything. How beneficial is it for you guys in this unusual season to start the season with 2 home games before you have to start talking about travel protocol?
You know, it's interesting, Frank. The travel and format with personnel and players is a complicated system on a normal year. It will actually be easier this year because our travel experience will be the same at home based on limitations with players, coaches, personnel, different people on the field. So I think it'll be easier. I know at Oklahoma State that we're only allowing people on the field that have to be down there in some sort of a working format. And so it simplifies the process more so than what it would on a traditional year where your home format is much different based on recruiting, prospects, a variety of different areas that can complicate a game day at home. With the virus and the format that we're using based on Big 12 policy, it makes it much simpler.
So there won't be too much difference between home game protocol and travel protocol?
You're exactly right. It'll almost be just the same because the only coaches, personnel, administrators, players, coaches that will be on the field at home and or on the road will be in some sort of working fashion.
Thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Jason Elmquist of the Stillwater News Press. Go ahead, Jason.
Thanks for taking your time this morning, Mike. Looking at the depth chart, Brendan Presley, one of the only 2 true freshmen listed there. He's at punt return and wide receiver. With how deep that wide receiver position is, what did he showcase during the fall that made you guys think that you might want to try to utilize him during his true freshman year?
Well, from day one, he's been, as advertised, ultra competitive, loves to play football. Fortunately, he's stayed healthy, which is very important for a true freshman. If you're going to get on the field, if you get dinged up a little bit and miss 7-10 days, it's extremely difficult to get ready to play. So his competitive level, his skill set, and his health has allowed him to put himself in position to play in the first game.
Has his size been a concern at all translating to the D1?
It hasn't been an issue with us at all. Again, I go back to his competitive nature and his willingness to do whatever it takes to be successful, and he overcomes his size. So for us, we haven't seen it become a factor in our practices.
Thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Barry Trammell of the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, Mike, this is a year in which you guys are really, hype's the wrong word, but great expectations are expected. You've had years like that in the past, and most of the time you've lived up to them. Whatever you saw in the past with these kinds of teams, experienced and talented, are you seeing the same kinds of things that this team can live up to the expectations?
Well, I think we have a really good skill set. We have depth. We have maturity. We have players that have competed in big-time conference games at home, on the road, bowl games. In my opinion, that's an important ingredient in having a really good season. This year's a little different. Our preparation, like most other teams in the country, has been altered at times based on the virus. And the health of your football team, and now that you throw in the effects or anything that could happen with the virus during the season, could play a little bit more of a role. But as we sit now, we're in good shape. So my answer to that question would be, as of now, I like where we're at with our team. But the health and maturity that we have has to stay priority in us for us to be able to continue to have a good season.
Semi-related, have you had any opt-outs? We've seen across the country people just choosing not to play. Has anybody let you know they don't want to play because of the virus?
We've had a couple players that at that point, which was a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I can't remember when it was, that had some concerns and decided to sit this season. But it's been very minimal with our team. We're still setting at 130 on our roster, so that number has been very minimal.
Who were those guys?
Well, they won't let me bring that up. I mean, I don't really mind if anybody finds out, but it's kind of a personal issue. And so if those players wanted people to know that they were opting out, I'm sure that they would have done like most young people do and put it on social media so everybody could know.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Next question comes from Bill Haston in the Tulsa World. Go ahead, Bill.
There we go. Sorry. Mike, I wondered if you'd ever really put any thought into your history of guys at the center position and how much mileage you've gotten from either guys like Andrew Lewis, who weren't recruited by hardly anybody else, or guys like you have today and Johnny Wilson, walk-on type guys. But you had everything from Grant Garner, who was really pretty highly regarded, to walk-ons who've gotten into that position and done really well. And I guess Schneider kind of fits the history, doesn't he?
He does. Brad Luddenblade was a non-recruited walk-on.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Was a 4-year starter for us. And we've been very fortunate here for, 10, 12 years. Once we established ourselves in about 2008 as a really quality football team. And then we pushed hard for walk-ons. And then we continued to cater to them, take care of them, treat them just like we would anybody else. We've had a number of young men that have come into our program and been extremely successful and earned scholarships, and Snyder's kind of falls in the same boat. So I'm not sure if it's luck or if we're just doing a good job of evaluating potential walk-on prospects. But we've had an unusual run there at that position. Johnny Wilson was a scholarship player, but he was very moderately recruited at best coming out of West Texas. So we've been very fortunate with guys that in some people's opinion might not have been good enough to play at this level for us to get them in there and get them prepared to play and be successful on game day.
I guess it makes sense, but some of your really best teams have had really, really elite guys at that position, whether they were recruited or not. They wound up being really elite guys in the middle of the line. Do you think Schneider is in that class?
Oh, I mean, as far as you evaluate them for, potential play beyond this level, probably not. But playing center is a little unique, somewhat like a quarterback. They have to direct traffic, and their savviness, their skill set and knowledge of the game is extremely important. In most cases, they set protections, they set schemes, they make calls. We alter that some in our system to somewhat encrypt the defense's ability to know exactly what our calls are. But, the majority of them, 60 or 70%, are going to come from the center position. So at some times Sometimes you can allow a player to get in there that can fulfill those responsibilities and get a chance to get on the field based on his intellectual skill set towards playing the game.
Whedon says he thought that Garner might have been the best player on the 2011 team, which I've never heard a center described quite that way. Is that just Whedon and Garner being friends and Whedon being generous, or did you view him, Garner, as that way and as being that important to that team?
Was that the team that played the Fiesta Bowl?
Yes, sir. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, Brandon's a close friend of mine and all that. With all due respect, he might need to be tested for saying that. But I will say this, that Garner was awesome for several reasons. One, he was a good college football player. Two, his attitude was tremendous. Three, he fit all the criteria of what I just mentioned with Snyder, with his intelligence and ability to get us in the right spot. Now, if he would have been really, really good, he would still be playing on Sundays for the most part. But for us at Oklahoma State, he was fantastic, and he was certainly an important piece of the puzzle. But there was a couple other guys out there that were pretty good playmakers that that made a big difference in that season.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question comes from Scott Wright of the Oklahoman.
Mike, any other ideas on other true freshmen that might have a chance to play on Saturday and beyond?
There'll be a number of guys play. I would hate to say who or when based on just how the game plays out, but there could be 5 to 6 guys that get in and play at some point in the first half. We'll just have to see how the game plays out.
Has that been a tough decision, one, because of your depth at all the other positions with veterans and trying to decide who might be able to make an impact and benefit from a year to play?
Oh, not really. Our guys get a lot of reps in practice, so we've had a number of young players get an extended amount of reps and time on the field compared to what they might get at other schools. Our young players that come in, I think, are always shocked that they're out there with the 2s and sometimes even with the 1s because of the way our practices are set up. So, we just have to wait and see where we're at, depending on how the game goes and depending on how the coaches feel based on the teams we're playing throughout the early part of the season, whether they are comfortable putting a young player in the game.
All right, thanks.
And down to our last couple questions. The next question comes from Robert Allen from Triple Play Sports. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, Mike, I asked some of the offensive linemen about this, and they said that Josh Sills, and looking at what has happened with the offensive line just over the last couple of months, how critical as a transfer has he been for you to have? And they've all talked about how he has blended in almost like he should have been recruited there in the first place.
Josh has been a really nice addition for us. He fits into our culture. He enjoys living in Stillwater. He likes to hunt and do outdoor activities, and his attitude, his willingness to be a part of the team, compete. He's not scared to work. And so we're thrilled to have him. We're excited about the maturity he brings to our team. But he's fun to be around. He fits into our Cowboy culture. Our coaches, our strength coaches, we all enjoy him being here. And so, the reasons that you're asking the question are true. He feels comfortable here and he's doing really well. And so he's been a good addition to our football team.
Last question for me. I had a fan ask me this. Are you going to put the travel squad in a hotel at home, or is that changing because of all this?
The routine that we've had, we'll keep it as consistent as possible. I think the more operation on Friday and Saturday that is normal from what it has been in the past is an advantage for us. So there are some small changes based on the way they prepare and serve food to our team. Whether we'll have access to a movie theater based on restrictions in Payne County is still not been resolved. We have our players scattered throughout the hotel. We should be a positive player with a negative player and not two negatives in one room. Those are all things that have been accounted for since really July. And I would anticipate that that's continued on throughout the next 3 months of the season.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And our final question will come from Jenny Carlson from the Oklahoman. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hey, Mike, I don't know if you knew or realized this. I don't know if I did until a couple of days ago, but it's been 10 years since you guys started doing kind of the mix and match uniforms with all the different combinations. What's been your impression of just the impact of that, if there is any? I mean, does it matter to you? Does it matter to the guys? Has that become something that is more important now, less important than it was? I'm just kind of curious how you've seen that go over the years.
Well, the first thing is, Jenny, you just reminded me how old I'm getting. I didn't realize it had been 10 years. The second thing, on these Zoom calls, you have the best picture of anybody coming up by far, just so you know.
If you saw me in real life, you would really be glad you saw that picture instead.
I'm just telling you now, you should see Hastings and Trammell and then those guys compared to you. And then the other thing is this, the uniform's still important to them. It always has been. Justin Williams has done a great job working with Nike, and it is an extremely difficult job to try to lay these uniforms out, mix and match, keep the fans happy, keep administration happy, keep the players happy. And it all has to be done at least 1 year, and in some instances 2 years in advance. So it is important to the players. Like always, they like the gray, they like the gunmetal, they like the black. Those are their colors they like. It's interesting. The fans love the orange. So we try to mix and match. I stay out of it. I have no idea what we're wearing Saturday. Don't have any idea of helmets, decals, colors, any of that. But they enjoy the mix and match uniforms. We still get comments in recruiting about the variety and different things and colors that we have. So it is, in my opinion, as big a deal today as it was 10 years ago.
I know when you started, or at least the word was when you started, it was basically some senior captains or some older guys that made the decision on what was being worn when. Has that continued, or is it different now?
There's a group of them that go in the summer and have that discussion. But again, the majority of that is done a year in advance and sometimes 18 months in advance, with the exception of just, okay, this is what we might wear in a certain game this year. But that also depends on temperature and conditions. For example, if we were going to play this weekend and the temperatures were supposed to be close to 100 and the field turf was 150, we probably wouldn't wear black or gray. We would try to wear something that would be more suited for keeping them cool, and so on and so forth. But they do have some input during the year through Justin. I stay out of all that. It's one area that I don't have to get involved in that allows me to do something else during the day.
Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody. Coach, while we have you here, is there any other final things that you'd want to talk about that maybe we missed?
No, I think we're good. Enjoyed it, guys. It's a quick 30 minutes. We'll see you guys, I guess, Saturday, next time I'll see you. Y'all be safe.